The Atlanta Dream lost that game to the Indiana Fever in overtime, and by the time the final buzzer sounded, a lot of people watching were asking the same question. If she needed that much room just to get a shot off, what happened when the room was actually given to her? That moment has turned into the center of a bigger conversation about who Angel Reese actually is inside that Atlanta locker room right now. Is she the vocal, demanding leader she wants to be seen as? Or is she a player whose volume on the floor has started to outpace her production once the ball comes back to her? After this game, that question is not going away quietly. This is not a small footnote buried in the box score. This might be the biggest storyline coming out of the entire Fever versus Dream rivalry this season, and it has almost nothing to do with Caitlin Clark's shooting or Indiana's depth. It is about whether Angel Reese's own teammates have quietly reached a breaking point with her. Reports and reactions out of Atlanta have painted a picture of a team that is tired, not necessarily of losing games, but of feeling like they are constantly rearranging themselves around one player who does not always deliver once the ball lands back in her hands. That kind of frustration does not build overnight. It builds one possession at a time, one missed bunny at a time, until it eventually spills out in front of cameras for everyone watching at home to see. Here is the part that stings the most for Atlanta fans watching this unfold. Watch the sequence closely, and it plays out almost like a joke that writes itself. Reese screams for a teammate to move out of her way. The teammate moves. She gets the ball in that open space, exactly the setup she asked for, and instead of taking a controlled shot or making a smart, simple pass, she puts the ball up into a spot where absolutely nobody on the floor could do anything productive with it. Not a teammate under the rim, not a rebounder crashing in from the weak side, nobody at all. The possession simply dies right there. For a player who has spent much of this season talking about being a vocal leader and facilitator for this Atlanta roster, that kind of possession does not support the case she has been trying to build for herself. They do not mind a player being vocal on the floor. What people have a harder time accepting is a player demanding control of a possession, getting exactly what she asked for out loud, and then wasting it completely. That is the kind of repeated pattern that quietly starts changing how teammates look at a person during a timeout huddle, whether anyone actually says it out loud in a press conference or not. Cameras caught more than one moment where teammates seemed to exchange quick, quiet glances after another possession went nowhere. Nobody threw their hands up dramatically. Players are trained to keep their composure, but body language rarely lies completely, and the subtle reactions on that bench told their own story just as clearly as anything said afterward at the podium. Then came the moment that actually decided the entire outcome of the game. With the score tied and the clock bleeding down in regulation, Atlanta had the exact chance every team dreams about in a hostile road environment. The ball found its way to Reese with a clean, uncontested look at the basket and nobody around her to challenge the shot in any way. This was not a contested, off-balance heave thrown up under pressure from three defenders closing in. It was about as open as a look gets in a professional basketball game with the season narrative riding on the outcome. She missed it. The rebound came right back out live. Teammates Ryan Howard and Naz Hillman both scrambled for a follow-up attempt in the final tick of the clock, and neither connected either. Regulation ended tied, and Atlanta had let a golden. Close-range opportunity slipped through their fingers in the worst possible way. The frustration on her own face afterward said everything that words did not need to say. She stood there for a second, eyes closed, clearly replaying the shot in her own head, and clearly not happy with what she saw. Missing a shot like that in front of a packed arena. With an entire rivalry storyline hanging over the afternoon is not easy to shake off in a split second. But reacting with visible frustration after the fact does not undo what had already happened. And it definitely did not undo the overtime period that followed, where Indiana pulled steadily away and calmly finished the job. This is what really set social media on fire within minutes of the final buzzer. As Reese stood there processing her miss, cameras caught Caitlin Clark walking calmly past her toward the Fever bench with a clear, unmistakable smile on her face, and to a lot of viewers watching live, it looked exactly like laughter directed at the entire situation. Nobody can say with total certainty what Clark was actually reacting to in that split second. But context matters here, and it is brutal for Atlanta, no matter how you slice it. The internet had spent weeks building this exact matchup up as Angel Reese versus Caitlin Clark, yet another round in a rivalry that Atlanta had actually gotten the better of earlier this season. In the one moment that mattered most, with everyone tuned in specifically for this kind of storyline, Clark looked calm, composed, and completely in control, while Reese looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. That is the exact piece that turns a simple missed shot into a viral, inescapable moment overnight. It is not just that Reese missed the layup. It is that Clark's face, whether intentional or incidental, became the perfect visual summary of the entire afternoon for millions of people scrolling their phones. One player delivered when it counted. One player did not deliver at all. The cameras just happened to catch both reactions back to back, and the internet did all of the rest of the work on its own. Here is exactly where the disconnect really starts to show up. If you only looked at the surface numbers, Reese put together her 23rd double-double of the season, just a handful shy of a WNBA record talked about all year. 15 points, 14 rebounds, 6 assists sounds like a strong stat line at first glance. And plenty of media coverage after the buzzer focused heavily on those exact numbers, framing her performance as another example of her toughness and consistency. But dig one layer deeper, and the picture changes fast. She shot just 5 for 16 from the field. She missed her first 6 shot attempts before halftime. She was held without a single point during the entire fourth quarter, the exact period when a team needs its front court scorer to show up. And in the 2 most important possessions of the entire afternoon, the 2 chances that could have ended the game cleanly in regulation, she came up completely empty on both, back to back. That is the real gap between the flashy headline stat line and what actually happened once the game hung in the balance. A double-double looks impressive sitting inside a highlight graphic during a broadcast. It means a whole lot less in the locker room when the player attached to it finishes scoreless during crunch time and misses the exact shot that ends up deciding the outcome. Head coach Carl Smesko sat down for his post-game press conference and tried to keep things diplomatic, the way coaches are trained to after a heartbreaking loss. But watch the footage back closely, and you can see the frustration sitting right underneath the surface the entire time. Reporters kept steering the conversation back to that final possession, and every time, you could see him choosing his words carefully, almost visibly biting back a stronger reaction. He referenced the final minute of the game multiple times during that press conference, circling back to it again and again, even when reporters had moved on, almost like he could not fully let it go. When a coach keeps returning to the exact same closing stretch unprompted over and over, that usually means it is eating at him far more than his measured tone is letting on. Teammates did exactly what teammates are trained and expected to do in that situation. Alicia Gray, who put up a career-high 32 points in the losing effort, spoke to reporters afterward and defended Reese publicly, saying it happens, that no one single person lost the game, that it was a collective team effort from start to finish. That is the correct, professional, locker room-approved thing to say after a tough loss, and on the surface, it sounds like total unity. But notice carefully what is missing from that quote. Nobody flatly denied that Reese's miss was the single biggest moment of the entire game. Nobody said the loss had nothing to do with her specifically. The defense offered up afterward was carefully worded to protect a teammate publicly without actually rewriting what everyone sitting inside that building had just watched happen with their own eyes. This is where the bigger picture starts to take shape once you step back from any single game. Reese has been fairly open all season about wanting to be viewed as a genuine vocal leader on this roster, someone who talks constantly, directs traffic, and holds teammates accountable in real time. There is nothing wrong with that instinct on its own. Plenty of great players around the league are loud and demanding of their teammates during high-pressure games. The issue becomes a real problem when the results do not consistently back up the volume. She has openly admitted to playing poorly in stretches this season, even saying at halftime of this very game that she felt she had started rough and needed to fix things quickly. Fans, and reportedly some voices inside the locker room itself, have started connecting the dots between a player who commands space constantly on the floor and a player who does not always convert once that space is handed to her. That specific combination is exactly the kind of thing that quietly erodes trust inside a team over the course of a long season. It is one thing to be demanding of your teammates when you are consistently delivering results that clearly justify that demanding tone. It is a completely different thing when the demanding continues at the same volume, but the finishing does not reliably follow, game after game, especially in the exact moments that end up deciding whether the team wins or loses. Atlanta had actually beaten Indiana comfortably in their earlier meeting this season, with Reese playing a genuinely strong, efficient role in that win. This time around, with the spotlight significantly bigger and the stakes noticeably higher because of the growing rivalry narrative, she came up short exactly when it mattered most. And Clark simply did not. None of this means Angel Reese is finished as a player, and none of it erases the double-doubles or the elite rebounding numbers she has quietly stacked up across this entire season. Her overall body of work still puts her firmly among the better rebounders in the entire league, and one rough overtime loss does not erase months of consistent production on the glass. But perception inside a locker room can shift extremely fast once something this visible happens in front of this many cameras, and losses like this one, with this much national attention attached to it, tend to speed that shift along rather than slow it down. If teammates start feeling like they are constantly making room and sacrificing their own touches for a player who does not consistently reward that sacrifice when it counts most, frustration tends to build quietly at first, behind closed doors, and then eventually spills out into public view. Atlanta's coaching staff now genuinely has a real decision to make about exactly how crunch time possessions get distributed going forward for the rest of this season and potentially beyond it. After a loss this painful in a game with this much visibility attached to it, that decision is not going to get any easier for Carl Smesko or his staff to make cleanly. The rivalry with Indiana and Caitlin Clark is not going away anytime soon either. Not with the way both franchises keep colliding on the schedule and both fan bases keep amplifying every moment between these two players. The next time these two teams meet, everyone connected to this story will be watching closely to see whether Reese actually responds to this moment with growth, or whether the exact same frustrating pattern simply repeats itself all over again in front of an even bigger audience.